Hello and welcome to another Ramblogue. This one we're going to be taking a look at the news of Avatar Studios, which is a new sort of studio that the original creators of Avatar are going to be sort of heading up, where they're going to create new content set in the world of Avatar, starting with a feature-length animated film. Chris and I have a chat about that news and speculate on how it came about, and also some of the things they might do with it, which is obviously heavily restricted by the fact that Chris, if you listen to our other podcast, Analysing Avatar, Chris has only seen season 1. So there's a lot of stuff I couldn't speculate on and mention about what they might do with those, and it was all very, my hands tied, and especially when it comes to the end of Korra. So keep that in mind when you're listening to this, that it's one person who is dying to say a bunch of theories about what they might do in a post-Avatar world, in a post-Last Airbender world. In a post-Korra world. Enjoy our discussion on Avatar Studios. This was taken, of course, from our podcast, Nothing But Static, as a segment. If you want to hear the full podcast, you can go to anywhere where podcasts are sold. So your Spotify's, your iTunes, all that stuff. Other than that, enjoy this podcast.
Avatar Studios.
Yeah,
off you go, Dan. I feel like I've done initial rants, and this is probably more one for you, because you got to tread the line of not spoiling the show for me. So off you go, Dan.
I think this is great news. I think it's going to be interesting to look at. I've seen some interesting speculation about what's happened here, because obviously this is Nickelodeon have launched Avatar Studios, and the two creative voices, sort of Michael DiMartino and Brian, I can never pronounce his surname, Konietzko, I think that's right. Michael and Brian Michael and Bri. They've recently very publicly left the Netflix live action adaptation of Avatar, and I've seen speculation on both sides of this. Some being like, oh, did they almost intentionally sabotage and make up this? Did they leave on grounds of creative differences to get out of those contracts so they could do this? I've seen some speculation on that, which is I could totally see where people are potentially coming to that conclusion. I don't think that's preposterous. I don't think it's what happened personally, because again, if you go back and read their statements from when they left The Last Airbender, they seemed legitimately upset that it had gone the way it had gone. The Last Airbender adaptation on Netflix. So. I do think this is connected to that, though. I think the reason this exists is because for those who don't know, they both worked on Korra together, and then after Korra finished, they kind of went their separate ways for a bit. We've worked together for a long time. I don't think it was I don't think they fell out or anything, but they just kind of both decided to work on some separate stuff for a bit. And I feel like a little bit the Netflix show brought them back together, got them re-excited about the world of Avatar. And I think without that happening, this doesn't happen. I don't know who approached who. It's not clear exactly what's happened yet. But Nickelodeon are launching Avatar Studios, which is a separate division designed to create original content specifically in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it's starting with a feature film. Now, there's been lots of speculation about what the feature film will cover. Some people talking about it covering some of the content from The Last Airbender comic books, which sort of tell stories, some mostly post the show, sort of filled in some gaps. I actually don't think they'll do that, because those stories, while very, very cool, are not. The more I think about it, they feel more like TV specials. I could see them doing an Adventure Time style Distant Lands, hour-long special that covers the content of one of those comics. But when I see the word theatrical, I think they want to go scale. And while those comics are very good at supplementing the material in the show, they don't have the scale I associate with a theatrical outing. So I think there's two obvious ways they go for that, and one is post Korra. There's some potentially big stuff you could do there, but I think actually the more likely option, and this is again pure speculation, is a Avatar Kyoshi series. They've recently released 2 books, and there's a third one due, I think, telling the story of Avatar Kyoshi's time as the Avatar, and I think it's been very popular, and I think the both creators are really like the material in that, and I would not be surprised to see them want to adapt some of that to animation. So yeah, that's a possibility. In terms of more series, people have been speculating, are we going to get an extension of Korra or Aang's story? I don't think so. I think what we're more likely to get is either a sequel series exploring what happens after Korra, or I think a prequel series is probably the most likely, where we sort of explore the world, a couple of hundred years even before Aang turned up. Go back to an Avatar we've never met before, in a much simpler time dealing with struggles. I think because the technology moved forward so fast between Avatar and Korra, and I can't say too much about what happens in Korra, but Korra does something interesting, the blend of like nature and technology in the end, that could potentially be interesting, but I feel like there's a chance that could bog down storytelling as well. So if we're doing speculation, I think we're more likely to, if we're getting another series at some point, which it sounds like we are, because they developed a whole studio for this. It's not just this one film, it's going to be a series of things. And if they do another series, I think it's going to I think most likely it's going to be a prequel. And I think if they're doing a movie, it's hard to say. There's so many potential stuff for a movie, but I'm leaning towards an Avatar Kyoshi movie. And I would be fucking bang up for that. So yeah, I think it's massively exciting news. It's clear both guys, Mike and Bri, are very passionate about Avatar again. They've had their break. I feel like they were a bit burnt out by the end of Korra. Not just making Korra, but the way Nickelodeon treated Korra towards the end. I mean, the final season they ditched airing it on television halfway through and put it on the internet.
Jesus. That rules out my theory there, because whilst I agree with you that it's probably all creative, I did like that your sweet fairy tale version of that story also didn't account for the big old truck of money Nickelodeon probably put their way.
Yeah, I mean, look, strike while the iron's hot, right? If you're a Nickelodeon executive and you've not made an Avatar thing in a long time, and last year was kind of the summer of Avatar through Netflix, during the pandemic, Netflix, Avatar hitting Netflix, it all kind of culminated, and Avatar got a whole new swath of fans, a lot of buzz. People got really excited about the show, and it does make sense. Nickelodeon immediately went, right, what can we do with this thing that we have rights to?
Yeah, and I think what you pitched makes a lot of sense, because it's essentially the Disney model. You know what I mean? No Star Wars content since it came back has been about Luke, Leia, and the days after Return of the Jedi. It's been sequel, it's been prequel, and it's fitted in and referenced and stuff. And obviously, some of those characters came back for the sequel trilogy, but it's not their story.
No,
it's Rey, Finn, and it's Rey's story. Finn gets a bit sidelined by the end of it.
So does everyone. Poe gets sidelined.
Poe never really gets a chance to shine. It's Rey's story basically. Rey's the only character that sort of Rey and obviously emo Vader. But I actually like Kylo Ren as a character. I don't mean that as an insult. So I think
you meant it as an insult, but then you were like, yeah, but I also like him.
I do like Kylo Ren. No, I do. I think I actually think they did Kylo Ren quite well, even in Rise of Skywalker. I love Kevin Smith's plot though about how Kylo Ren's this bad guy, and then spoilers. He gets his kind of redemption, and he nips to the Gap to get a sweater. And when he reappears, he's wearing a sweater that you've never seen him in, or have any indication he owns.
Well, no, he had that in a little box, and the box had a glass front, and it was Breaking Case of Redemption arc.
But I think what you're pitching makes a lot of sense. I think you sprinkle a bit of Aang and Korra in, if you can. Obviously, I don't know how either show ends. But yeah, you either go future, or I suspect, as someone who's only seen series 1 of Avatar, I would expect it would be pocket stories in and around those shows. Especially if there's some sort of tech nature debate. I think you probably do have to feature Aang or Korra in there somewhere in some capacity, because you gotta do that, but they haven't referred to it as a sequel series. They've referred to it as Avatar Studios, which suggests a lot of side stories in the Avatar world, which is exciting. I think it's a world the little I've seen of it, it is a world absolutely rife for more creative content, and it's a world that you look at and go, I don't need to have stories that are only about these three people. Let's see, you could do a really epic side story just about a waterbender, and maybe you set it in the same time as Avatar, but it's about a water tribe, or maybe there's a secret earthbending tribe. I don't know, whatever. But like, I think you could do a lot with that, and it would be really exciting to do that. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because only sort of now, and arguably they've not stuck to their guns. Only sort of now with things like Rogue Squadron and stuff is Disney actually doing that with Star Wars. Everything's been a little too connected. Branch out, like
a little bit too connected to the core original Skywalker saga. Yeah. Like, you've got this big old world, with infinite stories to tell. You don't have to keep it connected to this and that. Which is why I think a prequel is probably the smartest, because if you do a story set a couple hundred years before Aang even is born, there's no obligation to do anything, really. It's far enough but in the past that it can't possibly affect or change people's opinion of the original thing. It's like removed enough that you can just tell any story you want. It doesn't even really need to be about the Avatar of the age. It could just be a story set in the world. As you said, like about a tribe from a certain place, or that's assuming that
remove.
God, sorry.
Remove the question. Like, if you do it about avatars, I don't know Aang dead or alive, but even if he was deceased, he could still come back in avatar form and in avatar states. So I think, and presumably same applies with Korra. So, assuming that she's an avatar of some kind, which is, I think, it's a fairly safe assumption. It's
funny because it's so tricky because there's so much stuff I want to say, but I cannot say.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just theorizing and could be talking bollocks, but like,
I think what you're saying is correct. It's just there's more information that would inform your theorizing.
Right.
If you
but I think, if you do a third thing about a third avatar after Korra and Aang, if they're alive, you're going to want them to show up, and that will be the question. If they're deceased and it's hundreds of years in the future, whatever, there's still a route that they could turn up. So the conversation is always about who's going to turn up, who's gonna. And I think it's odd because actually you can get around that with quality content. Everyone was asking that going into the first series of The Mandalorian, but then The Mandalorian itself was so effective, people stopped asking that. And then they kind of went, season 2, let's give them a lot of nostalgia, and and then people went, oh, there's potentially too much here. So you can do it, but to avoid that being the dialogue, a prequel's quite clever, because then, or something completely where it's just earth bending somewhere at some point in time, for example.
Yeah, some people have been talking about doing like, we know Iroh famously had his siege of Ba Sing Se that lasted 100 days, like telling that story. Like young Iroh, sort of conflicted about pushing the military agenda of the Fire Nation. It's a really rich world, and whatever Michael and Bri are sort of excited about, that's what I want to see, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
like whatever story has inspired them, go, like, run with it. No interference. Like, Nickelodeon, shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down. Like, let these two guys just do whatever it is they want to do, because they clearly understand the world, and they clearly understand storytelling, and they clearly understand how to make this function. So just trust them. Now you've given them this fucking studio, essentially, and let them do it, and then support them. Do not start a series, then pull it off television and stick it on the internet. That's atrocious.
Completely. Siege is a good shout, but you've got to do that. You've always got that kind of... You got that prequel difficulty when it's something that's been referenced, because you know how it ends. So what you've got to do is fill it with characters who the audience can fall in love with, to add the jeopardy to them, to add the the unknown element of, well, we know how this thing ends, but we don't know what happens to this group of people.
Yeah, like we know where Iroh goes, but like
you've either got to kill them or justify why none of them stuck around and saw him ever again.
I tell you what, I must admit that's one thing that you meant. Oh God, what is his name? Has escaped me out of nowhere. The guy. He does all the animated Star Wars shows, and then he's been working on The Mandalorian with
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni, thank you. Sorry, yes. Dave Filoni's a master of that, because he's done so many Star Wars prequels now, and had to explain why so many Jedi aren't, don't just show up and help Luke in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And he's been brilliant at that. He's been so good at that. He's always found really fun, clever ways to... to sort of ride himself out of that situation. So, and he worked on the first season of Avatar, so there's a link there anyway. I trust that whatever they do, they'd find a way to make it work. So I'm super excited.
Imagine it now. Filoni? Yeah? Who's this? It's Bri. Oh, Bri. You got a new phone number? Yeah, you should see the money Nickelodeon gave us. I've got the iPhone 27, my friend. Oh shit! I've got the iPhone 40. Really? Disney money? Ooh, I bet.
Disney gave me one of those.
How do we build a new world that can go on for years and years, Filoni? I've got some tips for you. First of all, you got cast lined up. Oh yeah, great cast, sweet. Are any of them going to compare things to the Nazis? I don't think so. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it then.
I mean, I don't normally, Chris. I'm all up for adding to a riff, but I don't know where I go with that one. From Nazis, you've written me into a corner. Normally, honestly, I'm supportive of a riff, and I will tag it. I like to be a yes man on a riff. Yes and that's me. I've got to admit defeat, Chris, with Nazis. I don't know where to go from Nazis.
As did Disney. They were like, right, we've got to admit defeat. You've done it. We can't do anything but not renew your contract now.
Yeah, because before you went off on that specific tangent, I was going to say, you've got the iPhone 45. Disney gave me one of those volume things, a giant screen, so I can live in the world of Mandalorian if I want. That's where I live now. That's where my bed is. But you went straight to iPhone 45 and then to Nazis.
Disney gave, and one of the shows we reveal is set in the future. It'd be like, Disney gave me one of those see-through phones that you see in all the future shows, even though I don't know anyone that would actually want a see-through phone. Disney gave me one of them.